Welcome, Indiana high school bowling coaches and students and all that are tuning in today. It gives me great pleasure to be here on behalf of Steve Kunkel and everyone here at Mike Aulby's Arrowhead Bowl, Scott Devers, the general manager, and obviously Chad from Savage Bowling. I'm extremely pleased to be here with you guys today. We're going to cover a lot of stuff today. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. And then we're going to go into a pretty in-depth presentation on hopefully how to help you guys and girls and kids and students and everybody out there that's watching understand bowling a little bit more, understand bowling balls a little bit more, understand lane play, understand how to practice, understand how to just basically become a better bowler and hopefully enjoy your experience a little bit more. For me, a little bit of background about myself. We're up? Yep. Our little seminar screen is up. A little background about myself. I live in Indiana now. I've been here since '06. Was fortunate enough to marry Brenda Norman and come here to this great state. And been here since, like I said, for 14 years. But prior to that, I was traveling around the world, bowling tournaments all over the world, and coaching and teaching and giving clinics and seminars, trying to build the sport of bowling and just make the sport of bowling a more world-renowned and more well-known sport and more recognized sport. I come from a pretty big background in bowling with my family. My father was on the PBA tour in the late 60s, early 70s, and is in a number of Hall of Fames. My mother also was a great athlete herself and also a great bowler. And also my brother, who's my benchmark. I kind of followed him growing up as that kid that just couldn't wait till Saturday morning. A lot like you guys, the coaches out there, couldn't wait to get there on Saturday and couldn't wait to get out there and throw as many strikes as I could. So bowling's been in my life, been with me my whole life. I've been able to travel the world because of bowling. I have my wife because of bowling and my best friends because of bowling. There's a number of different things that I am fortunate enough because I'm involved in the sport of bowling. I've been with Storm Bowling Products for 25 years as a bowler and as an employee, and Bill and Barb Crispin give back to our sport on so many different levels, in so many different ways. On top of not only the competitive professional side of bowling, but we cater a lot to the league, to all of our leagues around the country and around the world, and also we are very involved in the youth part of bowling. As you guys know, we just had a big Storm Youth Championships, which is headed by Gary Holsenberg and Leanne Holsenberg, who do a fantastic job with our SYC team. They were just here recently in Indianapolis, which was a great turnout, and I'm hopeful that some of the students that the coaches that you guys coach were also there and enjoyed their experience and had a great time. So for me, I have a number of responsibilities now in traveling and also bowling. It's actually a very physically demanding sport, which I maybe get into a little bit later. Hopefully we'll have some questions moving forward about that. But my body's taken a beating, so I've had 15 surgeries since 2005. So my competitive bowling has slowed down, but I'm still hopeful that I can have an opportunity to get back out on the lanes. But right now, my responsibility as a Storm, I'm the European sales manager. As you can see up there, I got a little list up there, and I also work on our PBA Tour team. So that all of you that watch the PBA Tour and the women's PWBA Tour and all the big tours. Sometimes you'll see me in the back working with our players and our team with Jim Callahan as our tour lead, Sean Ryan, myself, and Del Ballard Jr., and sometimes Matt McNeil. So and Doug Kent. We've got a great group of guys that we work with. So those are some of the things that I'm doing now. I'm very proud. Last year, I'm very proud to be part of Indiana bowling history by being fortunate enough to be in the Indiana State Bowling Hall of Fame. So, and joined so many great Indiana bowlers and Midwest bowlers that have made such an impact on the sport. And my biggest achievement is I was fortunate enough that my peers and colleagues thought highly of me, that I made the National Hall of Fame, the USBC Hall of Fame in 2018. in the pioneer category as someone who helped shape the international world of bowling and grow. And it means a great deal to me being part of that and also being involved in growing the sport of bowling. And with that in mind, we're gonna start talking about the sport of bowling and some of the very important things that are necessary for success, for enjoyment, and a little bit of fun. So what I'd like to also to talk to you guys about is, while I'm giving this presentation, Scott is on the computer. If you guys want to type in some questions that you have, because there's a lot of information in here, or if you just want to unmute your button and you can verbally talk to Scott, I'll stop and answer all your questions. Unfortunately, we can't see you all today. I wish we could. It'd be great to have a room full of 120 or 100 coaches or 80 coaches or however many we have out there. But this is a tough times in our world, and during the COVID situation, we're trying to be as safe as we can and as also as informative as we can to help you guys still have a great experience and hopefully learn one or two things today. So from my personal standpoint, I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me talk for however long I'm going to be able to talk for. I'll probably have to pause a couple times to have some water. But like I said, these things work really good when we engage with the audience, when the audience engages with me, and then I can engage with you guys, because I know there's a number of level of coaches out there. There's some people that are on the very high end of the spectrum, and then there's also some coaches that are just getting their feet wet and just trying to learn and understand about the dynamics and the beauty of this great sport that we all love and cherish so much. So I'll pose this to you all. No question is a dumb question. Every question that that comes out there, I'll try to answer. So please, it doesn't matter where we are in the presentation. Please, I'll be watching Scott if he gives me a prompt with a little finger up, or if you guys give a prompt with a voice, we'll follow through with it. So, with that in mind, behind me we're going to have a nice slide presentation here to go through all the things that we put together. Our great technical director, as you can see, his name's Chad McLean. He's a Storm technical director. He was very instrumental in this entire presentation, packaging it, and we went over it together. And I've made some add-ins, and because of his great work and everybody's great work at Storm, we're able to put this together for you today. So we're gonna start here with obviously just the front page. You're going to see my back turned to you guys a couple of times. And for those of you who don't know, that's the beautiful mountains of Utah, where our lovely company is at Storm. And as these things come up, I'll discuss them. Hopefully you can see them on the screen. Scott, are we good so far? Can everybody hear me fine and see me on the screen? See the screen? If we can get just some thumbs up in the chat so that I can get that notification from Scott. I know that we're trending and moving in the right direction. So with that in mind, here's some of the topics that I would like to discuss today. Chad, we're good still? We're still good on your end? Good. Steve, you okay? I'm good. Okay, buddy. So listen, here's some of the topics we want to discuss today, okay? And within these topics, there'll be a layer of topics as we go along. So number one is going to be the evolution of bowling balls, kind of like to the early days to where we are today. It's extremely important to understand, Chad, could you grab me my phone real quick? To understand the bowling balls, okay? For those of you that are out there, obviously you can see that this is a smartphone. I have a smartphone with me. I would say probably 95% of the people have phones, but if you take it from the fact that the first phones we had were flip-up phones, were punch keypad phones. As technology has advanced with just in general of our normal everyday life cycle, so is the technology of bowling balls. So it's vitally important that everybody understands where we're coming from here. So the evolution of bowling balls will be number one. Number two, we're going to talk about oil and how it affects the bowling ball and how it affects the kids that you're teaching and how it'll affect their shots and their shot shape and what to do to make sure you have more consistent reaction moving forward with your players. Number three is a big one. I know some of this stuff is going to be very technical, and if it gets to the point where anybody's having any issues or they need some more clarity on the situation, please feel free to stop Scott and myself, and we'll do our best to explain that. But number three is the internal components of the bowling ball. Okay, that's your weight block. It's symmetrical versus asymmetrical. Okay, that's very important for today's game. That's similar to like what we talked about earlier, your touch phone as opposed to your flip-up phone. I don't see too many people carrying flip-up phones anymore, but I see a lot of people with smartphones. Okay? Then the next thing, another thing we'll discuss is ball motion. Bowling ball motion is extremely important for everybody, every level of bowler. I know as you guys out there, and girls, ladies, men and women out there as coaches, you're trying to get your players to increase their level of skill and also have a better experience. I can speak from experience. I know that when I bowl league and I bowl a really good score and I bowl a really big number, I feel pretty good walking out the bowling center. But when I don't bowl a good number or I don't have a good result in a tournament, I want to figure out where I went wrong or if I missed a move or if I did something wrong along the way. So number 4, bowling ball motion, the motion of your ball and where it hooks and how it hooks as opposed to what player you're dealing with is a key. Okay? Number 5 is huge, especially since high schools are always traveling and you're always bowling in different bowling centers in different environments, and you have to understand your bowling ball arsenal. It's extremely important to understand. You want to build an arsenal, and I'm going to teach you today about how to build a proper bowling arsenal so that you can attack and be ready and be prepared for whatever lane conditions you could be facing during the competition, whether it's in a league match or your high school regional match or your state qualifier or for your state championship or national championship. So these are 5 components that are going to be very important as we go along through this presentation. Okay? So we'll take to the next slide. And here we go. Course objectives. Number 1 for me is going to be probably the most important because it's going to hold true through every single topic that we discussed today. And that's the principles of the 3 Ps. And you'll find out what those 3 Ps are in the next slide. Okay? It's extremely vital that you, as coaches and also as players and as students and as bowlers yourselves, understand the principles of the 3 Ps. Okay? And then, as I talked earlier, we're going to go over a little bit of the chemistry of the cover stock and the evolution of bowling balls because you need to understand what your players are using so that you can help them combat the arena that they're playing in and that they're bowling in. So the chemistry of cover stock and how it has changed over time, as I mentioned earlier, remember those cell phones, how it has changed over time and how to be prepared for whatever lane conditions and whatever variables that you're going to see out in your environment. We'll talk about ball motion. As I said, ball motion, the physics of ball motion and how you can manipulate the ball motion and the internal components of the bowling ball and how that affects the ball motion. And we'll keep it, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible because there are some slides that go into very in-depth detail on why bowling balls make the motions and where they hook and why they do what they do. And then number 4 also, we're going to talk about surface adjustments and lane play. You see this all the time. We bowl in a fresh lane. As coaches, you start out in the first match, and after half a game, if you're bowling in a 5-man woman or 5-man team event, half the game, that lane has already changed and it's transitioned. And now you have to, as a coach and a player, try to get together, get on the same page, and try to get the right ball and the right angle of attack so that you can help your team and your students and your kids have the best experience and also the best bowl the best they can. So those are extremely important course objectives, and we'll elaborate on them as we transition through the presentation. Okay. Anybody had any questions so far? Any concerns? Can everybody hear me? Are we still good? Just give a thumbs up to Scott so that I know everything's going good. We still good, Scott? Okay. And as I said earlier, there's going to be a couple times, guys, where I need a little bit of water. I'm never at a loss for words. Sometimes I am. That means it's something really crazy. So there'll be a couple times I need to take a couple swigs of water. So please bear with me and be patient as we go through this process. So as we look at the course objectives, we're going to go into the next slide, which for me is the most important slide in the presentation. Because the 3 Ps, not only do they hold true for bowling, but I think they hold true in everyday work environment, everyday life environment, everyday friend environment, family environment. There are 3 things that are, I think, synonymous with successful people, great friendships, and also great coaches, great players, and success just in general. So these are the 3 things that no matter where I am around the world, and I've been fortunate, as I said earlier, I've been able to travel, teach in Hong Kong, I've been able to teach in Thailand, I've been able to teach in the Middle East, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, and these principles hold true in all of these cultures around the world. All of these cultures are around the world that these principles always will match up. So if you can understand this slide and make sure you keep this slide in your back pocket while you're coaching your players, and while you're going through the training regimen and competition, you will have success. And you will 100% for sure, if you can stay with the mantra that's up there, you will, if you're here and you practice the 3 Ps and utilize the 3 Ps, I promise you that you'll continue to grow and improve as you navigate whatever path you're going to take, whether it's as a coach, whether it's as a player, whether it's as a mentor, or just a support network. 3 Ps is very important. So number 1, practice. Everybody asks me, how do I practice? What's the right way to practice? And I will equate it to this. I think practice is a necessary tool to achieve being the best of the best. There's no doubt about it. Nobody gets there by accident. Nobody. I'm standing in a room right now with Scott Devers. He's a 4-time PBA champion. And he didn't get there just one day. He woke up and all of a sudden he became a 4-time champion just because he didn't practice. He put the time and effort and the necessary work that it takes to get to the level to achieve things. A lot of you out there watch Jason Belmonte on TV. I've known him since he's 16 years old. And he didn't get where he's at by just all of a sudden he woke up and all of a sudden he's a 2-handed sensation. He's had to put a lot of time and effort into his craft to achieve what he's achieved in our sport. So practice. For me, when I was bowling and I was competing and I was traveling around the world quite a lot, quite extensively, I had a couple different routines. Some days I would go into the bowling center and I would just want to work on rhythm and tempo. Okay, rhythm and tempo. And the reason why I say that is bowling is a muscle memory sport. It's all based on muscle memory. So, and your muscles, the bowling muscles are different. They're different than football muscles. They're different than soccer muscles. They're different. Bowling muscles have their own unique set of characteristics. And it's important that you continue to work those bowling muscles and you use them and keep them warm, keep them moving, keep them directed with your mind and also your body. So when I was bowling good in tournaments and my routine was the same, I didn't change too much. You know, if I practiced, let's say that week I practiced, you know, I would practice maybe 30 minutes 4 times a week, and I was on a good streak, and I was bowling a lot of tournament games, so I was tournament sharp. I didn't change my routine. However, let's say I got into a funk as a bowler, and I just couldn't work myself out of it, and I was struggling. So what I would do is, then it was time to put a little bit more time in. I would work on maybe doing some one-step drills that I'm assuming most of the coaches out there know how to do, where I just want to get, you know, I'm just standing at the foul line and I get into my stance and I just want to swing the ball and I just want to do a nice one-step so that I can try to get some timing and some rhythm and some feel. So this would happen if I was, as I said earlier, if I was struggling or if I was having a hard time with feel or it's just things. I start back to the basics, and then I would go from 1 step, and then I go to 2 steps, and I go to 3 steps, 4 steps, and back to where I get to my full step, 5-step approach, to where I felt comfortable. And some of those sessions, some of them take a lot of time. Some of those sessions would be 1.5, 2 hours. You know, it's not about, as I say up there, it's not about time, because sometimes you need the 2-hour session. And sometimes you just need the 20 or 30-minute session. It's about the quality over the quantity. So sometimes that session is 2.5 hours, but then sometimes that session is 25 minutes. Okay? Each player, and you'll hear me say this multiple times today, each player has their own bowling DNA. And what I mean by that is that a bowler, I like to think that everyone's got their own unique style. Yes, there's some similarities that make us great. Yes, there are some fundamental components that we all have to adhere to as bowlers, as far as good solid foul line position, good timing, good tempo, being able to stay on balance. All those things are key for every bowler. However, each bowler gets there differently. You heard me mention earlier Jason Belmonte, and I'll take another two-hander, Kyle Troop, and another two-hander to say Anthony Simonson. All 3 are two-handers. All 3 get to the foul line different ways, but all 3 have great rhythm, great timing, and great tempo. They all have their own bowling DNA. Then you take a guy like Chris Prather, who's been a breakout star in the PBA Tour the last couple of years. Looks like it's so effortless, but he's got different timing than a guy like, let's say, Darren Tang, who also looks effortless, but again, their own bowling DNA and their own regiment. Stick within the bowler's DNA as a coach and try to morph and mold that bowling DNA as you are working with your player. Yes, fundamentally, like I said earlier, there's certain things that you need to do. Foul line back, having that good rhythm, that good timing, that good tempo. But what amount of time are you going to go out there and spend with the player? Sometimes some players they're going to need, more time than others. Others are going to be more polished, as opposed to others are going to need more help. So you as a coach, you have to determine which player needs that time, that bulk of that big amount of time, and then sometimes that same player can come back in 6 months after he's worked on those things, and maybe he's in that 30-minute practice window. So again, quality over quantity. It's very important, and I think as a coach and as a player, you have to determine what is the quality, what is the quantity. But there's no doubt about it. Nobody gets to be the best without putting in some sort of practice regimen, some sort of practice routine, and putting the work in and putting the effort in. You take any sport in the world, and nobody wakes up a world champion overnight. There's no champions that are built overnight. It's built on time, effort, and putting together the necessary components to have success in your practice session. And sometimes I would challenge myself in the practice sessions. I would, I used to do this, this drill, excuse me, that one of the coaches I worked with back in the day, was a good friend of mine, a good family friend of mine. His name was Roger Gardner. We used to do the sit in the chair drill. So I would try to, compete, practice, and release my shot. And after I released my shot, my trail leg would stay behind me until my ball hits the pins. And once it hits the pins, then I bring my leg around and I would sit in the chair. So I would challenge myself to do that 50 in a row. So I would throw 50 shots in a row and then be able to bring my trail leg around and sit in the chair. Well, if I missed on 46, I'd start over. So sometimes you have to have your inner challenges with your players and with the people that you're coaching to push them to that next level. So always remember, no one gets there by mistake. Practice is always paramount. Now, with the practice goes the next thing in life, patience. How many things do we have to be patient about in life? We have to be patient when things aren't going our way. We have to be patient that things take time and they don't build. They don't just flip in the flick of a switch. We have to be patient with our families. We have to be patient with our work schedule. We have to be patient with our school schedule. We have to be patient with the COVID-19 situation. Patience. Patience in life is also very synonymous with bowling. The two are connected, I'd like to think. As I said earlier, these three principles, the 3 Ps, are very instrumental, not only in sport, but in life. So, do you have the patience to have the practice regimen, to put the time in, to put the effort in? Do you have the patience, for example, if you're bowling in a tournament, and, my brother, who was my benchmark my whole life, he gave me this great quote. He said, "Bowling is a game of pain. He who manages his pain, one frame to the next, one game to the next, one tournament to the next, who manages his pain and has the most patience usually has the most success." So I thought about that. I said, bowling is a game of pain. Because how many out there, this is where I would say, hey, put your hands up, would have the front 8 and then leave a solid 10 or a solid 7 as a lefty and then strike out and think, man, if I just would have carried that 7-pin or that 10-pin. They don't think about the 11 shots they rewarded themselves. They think about that one painful moment where, they left that single pin standing. So too many times, often or not, our psyche and our mind aren't thinking or aren't going about the proper thought process. So we have to dial it back and say, hey, how much patience do we have? Can we live with strike, ring 10, solid 8, blower 7, 4-pin, or can we live with strike, Greek church where we throw a bad shot and then strike and then we have a 2-8-10 and we're our patience is starting to get thin and all of a sudden we want to lash out at somebody, but that's when you have to take a deep breath and dial it in. Do you have the patience, the mental patience, to overcome all obstacles? Do we have it as a coach? Do we have it as a player? Do you have it as a brother, a sister, a mother, a father? Do you have that? Because we're faced with obstacles in life, but we're also faced with a lot of obstacles in bowling. So do you have the capacity to manage and have patience throughout the course of a tournament and throughout the course of a practice session? And if you can do that, and if you can be understanding and caring as a coach, and you can be that shoulder for them to listen to, and that platform to bounce their ideas off of, you'll be surprised on how much you can grow, not only yourself as a coach, but also, your relationship with your team, your relationship with your junior program, your relationships outside of bowling, with your family and with your brothers, with your friends, So when you're thinking about it today after this presentation, you think about, I'm going to be a little more patient today. I know my son or daughter didn't take out the garbage, but I'm going to be a little more patient today. I know my student, I told him not to stand and throw it up 5 with a big, strong ball, but I'm going to be patient with him today. And I'm going to try to be a little bit more understanding on helping him see the bigger picture, okay? Patience. It's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's a big thing in life, and it's a giant thing in bowling. Because I can tell you, the number 1 bowler in the world right now, and you'll hear me mention his name a couple times, Jason Belmonte, he has incredible patience. You know, he never panics. He doesn't panic, and that's the sign of a true champion. For me, one of my biggest assets was, I know when I was bowling and we had a lot of games, and the great bowlers, you know, in game 2 or game 3 of a longer format, they wouldn't panic. They'd be patient, even if they had a bad game. They'd understand that, hey, these things happen. Let me rely on my knowledge. Let me rely on my experience. Let me rely on just understanding that if I follow suit and I'm a little easier on myself and I'm thinking more clear, I guarantee you the results will be better. So patience is a huge thing, okay? Any questions on patience? Because we're going to be talking about it throughout the day, I can tell you. And then the last one for me is one that really is true and near and dear to my heart. It's perseverance, okay? I've had, as I said earlier, I've had 15 surgeries on my body. And I've had 7 on my slide leg as bowling. And there was a time where I never thought I would bowl again. And there was a time I never thought I'd walk again. And but I relied on the things that motivated me and pushed me and helped me continue to forge forward and push forward. And that was to always believe, right? Can we find the light at the end of the tunnel when things aren't going our way? Can you find the light? The tunnel sometimes is going to be a little deep and a little long. And it's going to seem like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But I promise you, and I speak from experience because I had 5 months where I couldn't even put my foot on the floor. And I can tell you that if you believe, you can achieve. And if you have the perseverance to believe that the tunnel is long, but know that there's a light at the end of that tunnel somewhere, and then you just got to keep crawling, you got to keep digging, you got to keep fighting, you got to keep persevering, that you'll get to, you're going to get to that light, and that light's going to start burning brighter and brighter and brighter if you are able to continue to push forward and forge forward. Now, perseverance comes has a lot of meanings in a lot of different ways when you think about all the things that you go through in a tournament or in a practice, or when you're trying to make a high school team, or when you're trying to get up and throw that strike in the 10th frame. Where's your mindset? Where are your feelings? Where's your thoughts? Think about how hard that you've worked as a player. Think about how hard you've worked as a coach. Convey the message to your player. Convey them, before they're getting ready to go out there for that big competition, that big high school match, of a team that they've never beaten before. Convey them that hey, you've put the time in, you put the practice in. You've had the patience of the ups and downs, and you've got to have the patience of when things don't go well, because there's going to be a time in a block, in a squad, in a game where things don't go well. It happens in every bowling tournament. Happens to everybody. There's going to be a time. How are they going to deal with it? Are they going to have the patience to navigate through that difficult time? Are they going to have the perseverance to keep pushing? Are they going to continue to rise? Are they going to continue to find some positive when they don't think there's any positives left? So how you deal with the bad, as I mentioned earlier, my brother saying bowling is a game of pain, how you deal with the negative directly affects how positive your experience will be in the end of that tournament, or in the end of that game, or whatever it may be. Now, I deal with a lot of different players on the PBA Tour. We deal with a lot of different players, not just myself, our tour team. And we run into all kinds of personalities, right? So you're going to have the quiet, reserved personality that burns like fire. And I'll give you an example. You take a guy like Wes Malott, big nasty, big Wes Malott, 6'7", rolls the ball as good as anybody has ever rolled in the history of our game, but has a quiet demeanor about him. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know sometimes whether he's bowled 270 or whether he's bowled 170. Okay, so but when he does release that emotion, you know there's a reason for it. So you can, and then you take a guy like Kyle Troop. And I'm just fortunate enough to have those two guys on my PBA League team. So, by the way, if you're tuning in and watching, make sure you tune in to the PBA League on September 27th to the 29th when professional bowling's back in. But this is a great example of two guys that burn different ways. You got Kyle Troop who leaves everything out on his arm. He leaves everything out on his emotions are all right in his face, right in his arm. And you have to manage Kyle a different way than you have to manage Wes. Now, all you coaches out there and players that are watching, and everybody's got different, just as everybody has their own different bowling DNA, everybody also has their own bowling mental makeup. And how you deal with those scenarios determines the success of your team and also the success of that player and that individual. So, can you find the light at the end of the tunnel? Do you have the mental patience to overcome all obstacles? And how do we practice? Quality over quantity. Okay? Quality. Quality sometimes is 2 hours, sometimes it's 20 minutes. Okay? Those 3 P's, if you take anything from this presentation, please take the 3 P's with you, and I promise you'll have success not only in bowling but also in life. So, I promise you all these slides won't be this long, I promise. Okay, now we're going to get a little technical on you here, okay? And as you can see up front now, we want to talk a little bit about the bowling balls, because the coaches, you have to understand the bowling balls for your players. It's a must. We're not booking any flights on a flip phone anymore. We're not getting any reservations. We're not ordering Amazon off a flip phone. You have to understand the dynamics of cover stock technology, okay? Here's Storm's first urethane ball. As you can see, there's some statistics on the left. It's where we had a durometer scale, and there's certain specifications that the USBC that we must adhere to, and they have changed over time. This ball here is obviously very hard, and it's resistant to abrasion. Okay, now we'll talk about this as we go on, but the abrasion is the amount of surface and the texture in the cover that you could put on the cover. So it's hard to put a lot of surface on this bowling ball, okay? And when you see the peaks and valleys here, we're going to talk about the RA values. I don't want to get too technical on you, but I'll try to keep it in layman's terms. The RA values of low RA values means there's not a lot of opportunity for oil to get into the ball and for a lot of motion on your bowling ball, okay? So cover stock technology and analysis, this is a progression over time, okay? You're going to see slides as we progress in bowling, and you have to understand your players as coaches out there, and also I'm assuming most of the coaches are bowlers. This will help your own game as well. There's not a lot of bowling balls out there that are successful here in the late 80s, early 90s that people are rolling, other than the urethane ball on a certain desired condition. Okay, so let's slide over to the next slide, and here you go. This is a must for everybody, and we'll talk about it later in the presentation about building an arsenal. This is your polyester ball, 1992 Storm polyester ball. It's very hard. And the reason, and you'll see that the balls that are on the hard scale are the ones that are going to go the straightest, and they're not going to pick up and have a lot of friction variables to them, so they're not going to hook a lot. Okay? So again, resistant to abrasion, lowest RA values, and the RA values are basically these peaks and valleys. That these are chemical. The cover stocks of the bowling balls are all chemical components. They're all chemically based. Okay? So they're microscopic, and you can't see the peaks and valleys in a bowling ball, okay? But this ball here, resistant abrasion, very hard, low RA values. That means the oil can't get into the cover stock. It can't get into the cover stock, so it doesn't absorb oil a lot. So usually you like to see your polyesters on your spare balls, okay? You know, back when I was growing up, I first used polyesters, and I believe PBA champion here, who's here, Scott Devers, he probably used them as well when he was on the way up. But as the times have changed, most of the polyester balls are used today are used for spare balls, okay? Now, there are times where we do run into where we have a lane condition that's maybe a really short pattern where a polyester ball comes into play. But it's far and few between. There's very, very few times, okay? So here's our progression of our cover stock innovation. And this is where bowling really started to change in the early 90s. And this is where we are to today in 2020, especially as coaches. You must understand the dynamics here. But everybody as a coach should have some sort of, I would hope, a polyester ball, your plastic ball, or a urethane ball in your bag for spares for your students, okay? Just bear with me here while I see if I can get smarter with my smart water. We'll take it on to the next slide. And we have cover stock, again, progression of cover stocks. Now we have highly reactive. For those of you out there who remember the great Sunstorm, that's our co-founder and owner, Bill Crispin, one of his favorite balls of all time. Scott, I don't know if you threw it or not. You might have thrown this ball or not. But yeah, the Sunstorm, 1993, circa 93, as you can see. Now medium to hard. That second number now starts to drop. As that number drops, all of a sudden you're going to start to see the ball work. It has the opportunity to take on a little bit more oil and can hook more and wants to hook earlier. Okay, so it's still difficult to resurface back then. Still medium to low RA values, which are the peaks and valleys where that's that oil absorption rate that we're talking about. But definitely the next generation of you step up from the ball we saw in 1991 to where we are now. And this ball today, as opposed to 1993, it would hook a lot more in 93 than it does today, because as the balls have changed, so have the oils and so has the playing environment. The lane surface has changed, the cleaners and oils have changed, everything has changed and continues to change. So we have to adapt. As I said earlier, you have to adapt. No more rotary dial phones. You know, you have to adapt. As we adapt our phones and we adapt this presentation, which we probably couldn't have done 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we adapt with the times. You as coaches, you need to adapt with the times and with the bowling ball technology. Okay, now we take it up to the next level. As you can see, you see the components on the right. Those are the microscopic images of the cover stock. Okay, this cover stock here is Reactor. We brought it out in 2005. It's still a low-grade reactive cover stock. Okay, but its hardness, as you see, the hardness starts to drop. The performance of the ball will start to hook a little bit more. It's much more easy to resurface. Okay, so that means when we say resurface, the Abralon pads. You know, you change the surface of the bowling ball. There's a whole topic of discussion about surface preparation in here, but we'll go into that later. But it's easy to resurface, and as you can see, the peaks and valleys again, okay, where that oil could get into the cover. You know, it's very important that you understand this for your players of 2020, because I can give you an example. If you follow Jason Belmonte on a lane, who has a super high rev rate, two-handed style, and he's using, let's say he's using a really strong bowling ball, and then you follow, let's say, somebody that's a little bit more traditional and up the lane, like a Walter Ray Williams Jr., who's further to the right and plays more up the lane, or a Norm Duke, who plays more up the lane. The lane transition and the lane change is going to be totally different. You're going to follow something totally different. Jason's going to take the oil off the front of the lane a lot quicker, a lot faster than a guy like Walter Ray and Norm Duke, okay? And that's all going to be contingent on what the cover stock is and what the surface preparation is of these bowling balls. So you guys as coaches have to understand this and have to be able to convey that to your players and watch the transitional changes as the lane is changing. That's what we have to do on tour. But here's the trick, guys and girls. You have to understand what your player is comfortable seeing. You have to understand what works good for you, what works for your player. Some players can't stand on 29 and throw it from the fourth arrow to board 3 and hook it back. So you have to, again, bowling DNA. Again, understanding what works for each bowler. But you as a coach have to understand the dynamics of each bowling ball and what they do and where they're placed in the arsenal so that they can have success. Okay, and we'll take it to the next one, which is another step up in cover stock. 2006 was a great ball for us, Special Agent. But again, you could see the images, and thank you, Chad McLean, for this great data, and everybody at home office. You can see that the peaks and valleys are changing. That's all oil going into the cover. Okay, R2S, one of our most famous, most versatile, most benchmark cover stocks at Storm. You'll see it on the boxes, on the balls. If you know every ball that you get, there's information on that box. That box isn't just not just information, just for laughs and smiles. That information is for the bowlers and the coaches and the players to utilize to their best ability. So far, we got any questions? Are we still good? Okay, we're still going good out there. Have I lost anybody? Hopefully you guys are all there. Hopefully we got a couple people still in there. So, again, RA values are picking up. You see that number pick up. As that RA value picks up, that means there's more oil in the cover. It could take on more oil. The peaks and valleys are steeper, so that means the ball's going to be more aggressive. If you recall the polyester, right? Let's go back real quick. We go back a couple slides here. Sorry, I'm just trying to go back. I want to make sure. Come on, load up. One more. Load up. There you go. As you polyester, you look at that RA value, it's a 23.89. Now we skip all the way to slide 9. Sorry about this, guys. It's going to take a little time. And you look at slide 9. Now you look at that number. All of a sudden, that number's gone up to 35, right? What's that mean? That means that ball's a lot more aggressive, and it's got a bigger potential to make a bigger motion. Okay. So we continue on with our progression. We take it to take it to R2X. Again, the numbers takes on surface manipulation. Okay. Now you see the peaks. The reds, there's a really high peaks. That means oil can get into the ball. That means it's going to create the coefficients of friction. And a ball has to create friction on the lane for it to make a motion. Okay? If the ball can't create friction and doesn't slow down, it's never going to move. Okay? It's never going to move. That's why you see most of the house bowlers out there bowling with these plastic balls. They're not playing that big hook. They're not playing that big hook because the ball, the dynamics of the bowling ball also don't allow that to happen. Okay? So here we have R2X 2008, still a softness hardness lower in the 73, 75 range on the durometer scale. And then as you can see, this ball you can easily change the surface. Okay? And for me, surface preparation is right up there with one of the most important tools as a coach that you must have. If any of you have watched me working on a TV show, you'll see that we have a handful of pads on us, and those are vital to us as tour team reps and also as bowlers, because we might have the right ball and it might be going maybe 1 foot or 6 inches or just a little bit too long, and we can make that ball hook a little bit earlier, or vice versa. Maybe it's going too early and we take the pad and we smoothen the ball out and it goes longer. We got a question here, and fire away. What do we got?
Question.
Sure.
One is there's a glare on the screen,
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any problem. We're going to, Steve's going to have this seminar, and you guys will be more than happy to, to have the slides.
And Greg Miller is asking, so that the softer the ball is better, it will hook?
Yes, softer balls mean they have the propensity to hook more. That's Greg. That's a great question. The harder a ball is, the less inclined it's going to be to take on oil in the cover. Okay, so it's not the softer the ball is, the more it's going to have an opportunity to create more motion for you. That's basically, in layman's terms, what's that mean, Greg? Those are great questions. And go ahead, Steve.
Now you're talking changing the surface. PBA can do that shot to shot.
No, not shot to shot. Okay, before and for all it's a great question, Steve. Actually, I want to address this for all you high school coaches out there. Steve asked the question, does the PBA change surface shot to shot? We cannot manipulate the ball surface shot to shot. We can manipulate it before the squad starts, and that's it. So during the practice session, you manipulate the ball surface, but once competition starts, there is no more manipulation of the ball surface on the PBA tour. Which is the same for the Indiana High School Bowl, all the bowlers and all the coaches. So make sure you follow the rules. And Steve, I'm assuming that's in the rule, correct?
Yes.
So it should be in all your rule booklet and everything. Make sure you understand them so you don't make the mistake in the rule. But for example, for a TV show, when we're working each match that they bowl on the stepladder is a separate match. So if a guy should get through on a match and we see that maybe his ball isn't doing what we want it to do, then we can change the surface between matches, but never during the game. Yeah, so that should hold suit. The USBC's got a great set of rules out there for it. So, they're even more strict in their US Open championships and the Masters, where you can't even practice on the lanes to change surface. You have to have your surface preparation done prior to getting out on the lanes, which is okay as well. That just means it's another reason why you have to do this homework. You have to understand the bowling balls and surface adjustments for your players and for yourself as well. All right? So take it to the next slide here. How are we doing on time? We okay? Am I talking too much? Okay. So then we take it to progression of cover stock, R3X 2010, the invasion. It invaded the bowling technology at that time. Now you're look at the higher values. Look at all of the red on the cover stock, okay? This is 4 years later. We've had to continue to change because, as we said, as our cover stocks change, well, guess what? You've got the companies out there in Brunswick and Kegel making oils to combat it as well. So we're constantly trying to match our covers with their oils, okay? So as the viscosity of the oils change, our R&D is doing our job at home office in Utah. They're doing a phenomenal job, and we're changing cover stocks so that we can, listen, we're building balls to fit every type style of bowler, okay? We're not just building balls for a two-hander. We're not building balls for a lefty. We're not building balls for the righty or the cranker or the stroker. We're trying to build balls for every level of bowler, okay? And that's what we do at Storm. That's why we're the Bowlers Company. And again, here, we've had to take our technology up another level. And again, easily accepts surface manipulation. And you'll see this later with a great video, guys. So just bear with me and be patient. But you can see all the red in the microscopic image. That means it's taking the oil, basically, grabbing the oil and moving it. So it's taking the oil from the front of the lane, and as that ball comes down, you'll see a lot of images of ball tracks on there where the oil stays on the ball. It's called oil absorption, and this bowl is an oil absorption monster, and was, okay? So R3X. So let's go to the next slide. And now, again, we take it to the next step up, which is GI15, 2015, softest cover hard stock. This is more in what we're dealing with today. As you can see, there's plenty of red there, but you can see how the peaks and valleys are, where the oil could get into the bowling ball, and that's the ball creating the coefficients of friction. Hank Boomershine is our guru at Storm, okay? We've got a great R&D team there with, and I want to mention them because, there'll be information on our website for all of you coaches. Reach out to Hank Boomershine, reach out to Alex Hoskins, reach out to Chad McLean and Steve Klompkin. They're all working in our technical team downstairs. And obviously myself, my information will be on there as well. And I'm in Indiana, guys, so I'm not that far away. Hopefully next time if I get lucky enough to do a presentation like this again, where I passed the grade. I know you guys had Ron Hatfield last year, so I've got a big shoes to fill. If I pass the grade and I get the chance to come back, I'd love to see your faces as opposed to just seeing this iPad that I'm looking at. So with that in mind, again, we look at cover stock technology. This is more of the modern day. What we're dealing with today, we have GI 15 and versions of this cover on today's technology. Again, you can see what I'm talking about. I don't want to get too caught up into it, but it makes a giant step. Now here's another grade. Now you can see these are your polyesters, and we'll go over this pretty quick, but you'll see how flat each of those are. And there's your reactive urethane. Okay, now all of a sudden, as balls changed, and Scott could attest to this because he bowled in this era, all of a sudden the balls started hooking more. They started changing direction more. Well, that's because of cover stocks and technology. It's changing right in front of our eyes. Okay, so you see that's reactive urethane 1993. Then all of a sudden you start to see these are the peaks and valleys from a different look. 2008, okay, R2X. Now all of a sudden, what's going on here? We've got oil absorption and oil getting into the ball. 2011, now all of a sudden the NRG cover, now all of a sudden the peaks and valleys are all over. It looks like the mountains. Okay, we started out in Indiana where it was real flat with polyester, and now we're in Utah with the mountains. So you can see what we're dealing with here as far as cover stock technology. And this takes us into the next. This is very important as well. Oil absorption. You look at polyester. You look at then your slower oil absorption in your urethane balls, where it just kind of meandered into the cover stock, and then you've got your really fast oil absorption rate as it goes higher. Okay. So oil absorption rate increases as cover stock technology develops. Does that all make sense to everybody? Should make sense to you guys? Okay. I don't want to get too technical about those because it could get really crazy. So we talked about this earlier. As peaks and valleys have increased at the molecular level on modern cover stocks, oil absorption rates have increased as well. So as the peaks and valleys increase on the ball, the oil absorption increases as well. So the ball takes on more oil. Hence, what it does is it changes reaction for that next player that steps up, for your next student that steps up on the lanes, depending on what ball they're using, depending on where they're playing on the lane, it's going to change. So when we're bowling a tournament, and that's why it's very difficult moving, say for example, you're a coach and your team is following 5 two-handers, okay? And you don't have any two-handers, okay? Well, what do you think is going to happen if you're going to follow 5 two-handers? Their rev rate's going to be higher. They're probably going to be further left. So as your players migrate left, they're going to see the ball. It's going to hook earlier. It's going to change earlier. So you as a coach have to be on top of these moves. You have to see these things and understand why the lane is doing that. Why is the lane hooking more? Or vice versa. Why is the lane not hooking more? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you have 5 two-handers that are going to where 5 people that played really straight up like 7-8 board, and nobody's touched the middle of the lane, and all of a sudden their ball's going crazy because it's basically on a fresh lane. So you as coaches must understand these bowling balls and what they do to the lane and how the oil into the bowling balls changes the entire path and plan that you have as a coach and as a bowler. Hopefully that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions along the line right now of what I'm talking about? Just shout out real quick. I'm going to take a quick sip of water.
About the absorption of the oil in the ball. There's talk about taking the oil out or removing the oil after so many games. So how's that affect?
Yep, I heard that. Great question. The question was, we talk about oil absorption into the bowling balls, and I think the question was, can you take the oil, or how does that work when you take the oil out of a ball? It's a great question. We have, at your local pro shops, which I encourage you all to use, please go into your local pro shops and make sure you take care of the dynamics and the cover stock of the bowling ball with the cleaners and the surface preparation. And they have machines called rejuvenators, and some of these new machines now, you'll see them out at, actually at the Storm booth, we have one where it actually goes in water and a molecular, I don't know what the name of the machine is, but Mark Anderson, who runs our booth, it detoxes. If you sit and watch, you sit in oil, and it actually, the oil comes to the top of the water, and it looks like there's oil sitting on like an oil spill in water. So it literally takes the oil out of the cover stock. And you want to prolong the, listen, some people are able to buy a number of bowling balls and some aren't. So you've got to be able to prolong the life of that bowling ball by taking care of it. That's why we make the cleaners. That's why we make the abrasives. That's why we do, the polishes, and all the things that we utilize are all for taking care of the bowling ball, and we're giving you guys the best experience possible. That's why the pro shops have these tools that they're not just out there to take your money. They're out there to help you have a better experience and have the longevity of your purchase be even better. So yes, you can take oil out of the balls with these tools, which I would encourage all of the coaches to always make sure that your cover stock preparation is is ready to go in each tournament, because every shot you throw on the lane, it's picking up. Remember, we talk about these peaks and valleys. These peaks and valleys. It picks up dust. It picks up dirt. It picks up particles. It picks up everything and oil, and it's all absorbed into the cover. You guys know that sometimes you'll take a ball that's brand new, let's say it's a matte finish or 1,000 or 1,500 out of the box, and you throw it, 3 games in league on one night. All of a sudden, now it looks shiny. Well, that's because it's taken on the oil, and it's taken on a lot of the different components that that the proprietors and some of those things are out of their control. So I would encourage you all to make sure you go to the pro shops and please take care of the cover stocks of your bowling balls. It's vitally important. Great question. It's a great question. So as you can see, we already went over that. Peaks and valleys go up. Then Storm came up with a new cover stock called Spec, Storm Performance Enhanced Cover Stock, and this is a great tool for people out there. We were trying to create a cover stock with slower absorption rate, so that has a comparable performance to strong, fast absorbing cover stocks. So we're always trying to push the cutting edge. It's kind of like a car. Your car from 1990 doesn't drive the same as your car does from 2020. So it's not much different. So we're trying to combat all the forces out there for you as the bowler and you as the customer and you as the coach. To give your player options, okay? Options. That's what we want, okay? So that's what Spec stands for, and we'll go into this. This is a great idea of your slide. So those are the 3 balls, if you can remember: Gravity Evolve, Crux Prime, and ProMotion. Okay. Slower oil absorption times were always believed to be the result in a decrease in performance of the ball. Okay, we developed a Spec cover, and a lot of testing, and 5 times slower average oil rate, so it has a slower absorption rate, and you'll understand what that means when I show you in 2 slides. And it's very important that you guys understand this. Very important. Okay, So we did some more tests on the Spec, and this is some of the data that we came up with. Okay, challenges the traditional beliefs that it has become the new standard in cover stock technology, and it's easier to clean and it has a lasting performance. Okay, so these are some of the things we did with some of the new technology in our balls, let's get to oil absorption. Now this is these slides are, now we're getting into the really technical part of it, where you can see the oil absorption rates in the slides. That's actually, and then you got our covers that are on top of it with the R2X and the NRG and the Spec, which, it just kind of sits on top. Okay, so these are, I don't want you to get too caught up into this, because the main slide that I really want to talk about coming up is this one right here. Okay, this is the biggest of all of them. Okay, now your bowler throws a shot in practice, doesn't wipe off his bowling ball. Okay, after no time, okay, there's 1 minute, there's 2 minutes, there's 3 minutes, okay, there's 4 minutes, and there's 5 minutes on that type of cover stock. As you guys can see, the oil absorption rate dissipates. Okay, so that's the oil going into the bowling ball. Okay, now take the next cover, same time frame. Comes off after 1 minute. Now you'll watch it as it goes. Okay? So still got oil on the ball. Now, most people when they're bowling in a five tournament, don't have 5 minutes between shots. Okay? Most are, 3 to 4 time frame. Then we take the Spec cover that we just got done discussing. You'll see that the oil absorption rate is little to none. It'll stay on the ball almost the whole time. Okay? You guys can all see those images, hopefully. Now, the one key that you want to do with your bowling ball, which it's vitally important to have consistent ball reaction for all of your players, all the coaches out there. Very important to have consistent ball reaction. You must wipe your bowling ball off every shot. I'm a firm believer in it. Okay? Towel, chamois. They've got the chamois that do it today. They're like leather texture. That'll give you the most consistent reaction for your bowling ball. I think it's vitally important that everybody does that, because you don't want your ball. How many times you'll throw one shot and then the next shot, oh my God, it didn't hook, or you get closer to the oil and you didn't wipe your bowling ball off, and then that next shot all of a sudden has oil on it and it wants to drive. So I think we have some questions. So just bear with me for a second. What do we got, Scott? Great question. And if anybody couldn't hear Scott, the best product to wipe the ball down between shots is a chamois. It's a little chamois. I wish I should have brought one with me. You can get them just in about every pro shop. The texture of it, it's like a leather material, and it takes the oil off immediately. I would encourage every single coach out there to have chamois for their players. And make sure that they're, if you can't get them, maybe hopefully the players, encourage their parents that this is a tool that's going to help you in your bowling. It's going to help you with your coaching. It's going to help you understand your ball motion. It's going to help you because you're going to be able to see things on a more consistent level. The bowlers that I know, almost all the great ones, wipe off their ball. A lot of the guys from the old school didn't do it and don't do it because, as you can see, the oil absorption rates are different. Okay, back then, the oil absorption rates they didn't absorb into the cover, so the oil just stayed on the ball, but the oil didn't move all over the place. Okay, but now because of all the players you have today, you have to wipe off your ball. Go ahead, Steve.
Speaking for the proprietor and for the tournament directors, if every kid takes 30 seconds every shot to clean his ball, we've now added hours to the program. So how long,
everybody's got their pre-shot, should have a pre-shot routine. Steve's question was, if everybody takes 30 seconds to clean their ball off, we added hours to the program. It's literally a pre-shot routine. There's very few people that I know that when it's their turn, they can just grab the ball and walk up to the ball return. You have to wait for lane courtesy. You have to wait for the bowler on your right, bowler on your left. It takes less than 5 seconds to just wipe your ball off and get ready to throw a shot. So I would encourage everyone to incorporate it into their pre-shot routine prior to getting ready to get up on the lanes. Some people's pre-shot routines are a little bit longer than others. And what I mean by a pre-shot routine is, okay, you're playing the second arrow. You have a visual of the second arrow. You have a tempo vision that you're using as a player. And as a coach, you're wanting your team to play right around the second arrow. So your player knows what ball he's using. He knows where he wants to attack. So these are all things that he should already be processing in his mind. So all he's got to do is go up there. If he's got to grab his rosin bag with his hand, and wipe his ball off, dry his hand, and up and go. So they have a 24-second shot clock on TV. They're able to do it pretty quick. I would incorporate this as a practice routine, Steve. So I would incorporate this into your practice routine. You know, practice the same way you're going to play your tournament. So many times, you know, and again, I'm going back to the 3 Ps. We go into practice, we just grab the ball up and go. We don't go through our pre-shot routine. You know, have the patience to go through your pre-shot routine, to go to properly practice the right way. Don't just get up there and rapid fire shots. Remember, quality practice, not over quantity. So if you do the right things going forward, that'll all take care of itself. And I think time-wise we'll be fine. So that's a great look at your oil absorption. Now, you guys, I want you to watch this video because this is very informative video. And everybody out there, you know, as a ball rep, I get asked every day for a free bowling ball. And these things, you don't understand how many people actually touch each ball. It's an amazing amount of R&D and love and texturing that goes into creating just one bowling ball, just one. And here's a great video of you guys to come up on. Why did I play that video? Come back here. Well, let's see. We get back. All right. Let's see what we get here. Yeah. Let's see if it's going to play. Here we go. Watch, guys.
Bowling ball can weigh up to 16 pounds. And fully half of the heaviness comes from a weight block that's hidden inside the ball. The added weight does help knock down more pins. But its real purpose is to help the bowler hook the ball to get a strike. This stuff may look like melted chocolate, but it's really the liquid resin that gets molded into the weight block or innermost part of the bowling ball. The resin is polyester based, and it can be molded into just about anything. The resin is pumped out of the mixer and into molds to make the weight blocks. But check out the shape. It might surprise you that some weight blocks aren't even sort of round like a bowling ball. In fact, these ones are shaped more like a block. In another part of the factory, another mixer mixes up a different batch of resin. It's for the core of the bowling ball, or the middle layer that sits between the weight block and the outer shell. While the resin is mixing, workers prepare the molds for the cores by placing a weight block into each one. When the blocks are in place, the molds are closed up, and the pink resin pours in to completely fill in the space around and under the weight block. Before they're closed up in a third and final mold that forms the ball's hard outer shell. The shell is made of a dense but rubbery plastic called urethane that can be made into almost any color, and a mix of colors to create the crazy swirling patterns you see on some bowling balls. It takes just 5 minutes for the urethane to harden enough for the balls to come out of the molds. But before they harden completely, a hole is drilled in each ball. It's not for your fingers. Instead, it marks the position of the weight block inside the ball, so your pro shop knows where to drill the finger holes for maximum hook. After the holes are drilled, the balls harden for a full 24 hours. Once they're fully cured, the hole is filled with a colorful resin to permanently mark the spot. And that's why you always see a colored dot on a bowling ball. A lathe smooths down the dot and the surface of the ball until it's a perfect sphere. Then, each ball goes through a weight-defying test to find its center of gravity. An air jet spins the ball until the heaviest part, as determined by the weight block, naturally settles to the bottom. That's the ball's center of gravity. A worker marks it with a pin. And later on, pro shops use the marking along with the dot to determine where to drill the finger holes on each ball. But before the bowling balls ship out, each ball is engraved with the model name, a unique serial number, and a permanent mark at the center of gravity. A smear of bright colored paint helps the engraving stand out. Then, the finished bowling balls are ready to strike.
All right, just a quick video there for you guys to see, because the dynamics of one bowling. Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to get my mic on. It takes a pretty big army to make one bowling ball. So, and the reason why, I just wanted you guys to see that is because, a couple thousand of these are made every day. Thousands of these are made every day, in all around the country. But you see how many people just have to touch one just to make it to where it is today. So, the next important thing we'll talk about real quick is your internal components. I'm not going to get too crazy about this. Asymmetrical versus symmetrical. Your asymmetrical shape is, Steve, you all right? Oh, okay. I'll tell you what, guys. Yeah, let's take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be right back, and we'll carry on. Thanks, guys. Everybody back on? Hopefully you guys got a quick break. And you know, as I said earlier, I know some of this stuff is going to be really technical and going to be hard to understand for some people. And then obviously some others are going to be able to embrace it and you know, be able to understand what we're talking about. So real quick, we're going to talk about, we'll just get all three of these up here. You look at the internal components of a bowling ball, which you have to know for your players. You have to understand these. You have to understand the bowling balls and what they're doing. All right, asymmetrical is defined as a real angular shape. That means the internal components, they're not equal in proportion to the top or bottom, okay? All right, so it's basically, it's a more dynamic design on the inside. When you go to symmetrical, you're looking at a smoother shape, controllable motion, equal top to bottom, two ball motion tuning parameters, okay? And then your traditional three-piece, which is not a lot of change of direction. So you're looking at highest change of direction, and then where most of the bowlers are in your symmetrical, and then obviously the traditional three pieces would be your spare balls and most of your polyesters. Am I okay still with sign? Okay. So this has been the symmetrical part of the ball. That's the internal components of your ball, okay? As you can see, symmetrically shaped the same way around. Okay? I want to get into pin buffer distance and pin buffers and distance. That's what changes the motion of the ball, but that's where you have to find as a coach, you have to understand each ball roll of your player is going to be different. So I have to find their positive axis points so that you know, I can get the desired motion of what I want from that player, that ball. If you don't know that, you bring your bowling balls to your pro shop operator. They should be able to figure it out for you so that you can understand where my gaps are in my player's arsenal. Hey, I have a player that throws it hard and his ball never hooks. It keeps going too fast. Well, that's where you want to drill that big, strong internal components of the ball and surface preparation. We'll talk about that later, but you have to understand these variables so that you can help your students as well. Okay? You can, you know, with a symmetrical ball, depending on how you drill it, flare, you see when we saw earlier the oil rings on the ball, that determines hook potential. When the flares are in a big spot on the ball, when they flare across the ball, that means the hook potential is going to be very high. When the flare rings are tighter and smaller, that means the hook potential is going to be less. Okay? When a ball flares, it's rolling on all different fresh parts of the ball. It slows down more. This will make sense in a couple slides. Okay? The more a ball flares, the more it slows down. And you need a ball to slow down to hook. Okay? Undrilled intermediate diff. Okay, we're just talking about drillings here. It's drilled with intermediate diff, and this is used for control and on flatter patterns. So you don't want a lot of big change of direction off of flatter patterns. You want that smooth reacting ball for all your kids. So you got to be cognizant of what the bowling balls are doing. It's very important. Okay. Go to the next one. Core design. Here's your asymmetrical shape. Again, components very dynamic inside. You know, very unique. Ball motion tuning parameters include pin to pap. Okay, this is how you determine, you know, as we just saw in the video, where they fill that ball, that pin, and the marks on the ball. That's where it's going to determine where your ball hooks on the lane, where it's drilled based on those markings. That's why we have the video for you guys to see on how the balls are made and how they're constructed, based on where what kind of player do you have? Do you have someone that's really throws it hard and straight, or do you have someone that's maybe throws it real soft with slow ball speed? You have to match the bowling balls to your players. So if you do that, I guarantee you their scores will go up and their experience will be better. I promise you that. So we'll just quickly get all these parameters on here. You know, typically flare a lot. Like I just said, they flare a lot. So the hook potential is very high. Okay? So High undrilled intermediate differentials, it just means the ball is going to have more motion. All right? They want to roll fast because it's not uniform shape in the middle of the ball. So, and they finish, their motion is very strong and very aggressive in motion, okay? So basically the difference between this, and here you go, why shape matters. Really what you need to understand on this, okay, is on the right, we have asymmetrical, and on the left, the symmetrical ball. Really what I want you to look at just are the numbers on, sorry, I keep turning my back, are the numbers on the right, okay? These numbers are on the box of every Storm and Rotogrip bowling ball, okay? All you have to do is look, think of it this way as a coach. Your player needs a ball that goes, they're having a problem getting the ball down the lane, okay? Their ball is hooking too early or they don't have enough ball speed, okay? So you want to look at the ball. The higher the RG, radius of gyration, higher the RG, the longer the ball is going to go down the lane, okay? So if you have someone that's maybe a freshman that can't generate a lot of ball speed and their ball keeps hooking early and keeps going crossing over, you know, maybe you need to think about, are they in the right bowling ball and understand the components of the ball so that they can get a ball that won't hook so much and will go longer before it makes its transition to that hook phase, okay? So go ahead. We got another question, I think.
Yep. Explain a little bit about wet-dry condition and what's the best tactic.
Question is, explain a little bit about wet-dry conditions and the best tactic. I'm going to explain that. I'll explain it more later when we talk about lane play. But what happens with wet-dry is you have a high volume, if I'm a lane, all right, I'm a right-hander, you have a high volume of oil, usually in between boards 10 and 10. And onto the outside is usually extremely dry, which means there's not a lot of oil out there. So when your ball hits the dry, it wants to change direction really quick. But when you get the ball in the oil, it just wants to float down the lane. And on competitive bowling terms, we call it the cliff. Okay, the cliff is where the oil and the dry meet. Okay, so what you usually want to do is you want to attack the cliff and try to keep it up against the cliff. Okay, so meaning if you're a lower rev rate player, you want to probably start your ball into the dry in the front of the lane and kind of throw it up against that where you determine that wet dry is. So if that wet dry is on board 13 or 14, you want to throw it up like 10, 11, 12 and get it, you know, for that straight player so that the ball picks up, but then it hits the oil and can ride into the pocket. On the flip side, if you have a higher rev rate player, you want to get a ball that, you know, with the proper surface on it, and you want to try to get them, you don't want to get them into the dry because because rev rate's going to make it hook too early. And, you know, the way he attacks the lane is you want to get him into the oil and try to roll in the oil just left of where the cliff starts and use the down lane, you know, a little bit of the down lane motion, maybe depending if the pattern is 30 or 5 or 40 feet, to get him to have the ball break at that part of the pattern, okay? So there's a number of different ways to combat the wet dry, which you'll see coming up here soon in regards to the bowling ball and how you attack the lane. Now, for the wet dry question, for example, you wouldn't want to use a ball that's super high RG because that ball is going to go really far down the lane, okay? And then once it makes its motion, it's going to go sideways. So if you try to play the dry with a ball that goes really long and sideways, it's going to be very difficult to control. What you want to do is you want to use a ball that's a little bit stronger, a little lower RG as the bands go down. The numbers, the lower the RG, the more the ball wants to hook earlier, okay? Think about that. High RG, long. Low RG, strong, okay? High RG, long. Low RG, strong. Stronger meaning it wants to roll earlier, okay? We got another question?
What type of ball do you recommend for a new bowler or someone that is new to the sport?
Great question. I would get them an entry-level bowling ball, something reactive but not super dynamic on the internal components. You know, in our line of storm balls, it would be somewhere along the tropical line, the tropical series. entry-level bowling ball where it doesn't have the internal components of a lot of change of direction, but the cover stock, you can manipulate the cover stock to make more changes of direction. So, and get your feet wet so you understand ball motion and understand how a ball, what a ball is designed to do before going out there and buying the most expensive ball out there. That's why we have these entry-level balls. And then as you understand the ball motion and understand the bowling balls itself, then you can step up from there. Still good? Okay. So understand that. High RG long, low RG strong and early. Okay? That's what I want you to get out of that slide. Key components of the external cover stocks. Okay, there's your pearl. Okay? Your pearl cover stock, it's got a real high concentration of micas. It's got the materials in the cover. It's the least porous, so that means it doesn't take on a lot of oil. Okay? It's got, when it sees the dry, it wants to come off it really hard. Okay? That's why highest dry lane coefficient of friction. Okay? Then we've got the solid, no mica in it, takes on the greatest amount of oil. Okay? Takes on the most and greatest amount of displacement in oil. That means it takes the oil and moves it all over the place. Okay? Real quick. And then the hybrid is the mixture of the two and exhibits both characteristics for the desired reaction. So you have to understand your equipment for your players. Okay? All right? This is a great, okay? Here you go. Perfect example. Strong, super strong cover stock, okay? What does it do? It loses speed quickly. So that means it slows down quickly, okay? It's a solid, okay? It takes on the most amount of oil, and it's really good for flat and heavy oil patterns. So when I explained earlier about the question that we had about the wet-dry, you might want to see some of your higher rev rate players use this ball where it's really wet and try to ride that cliff, ride that oil line. You got to determine as a coach where that cliff is. And you want to ride that oil line and try to manipulate that oil line with a ball. And you can do it with a big, solid, strong ball. Okay? Go to the next one. Okay, perfect example. There's your pearl. What does it do? Doesn't take on oil as much, okay? Loses speed slowly, okay? So that means it's getting through the dry. That's usually what we usually use the pearl balls when the fronts of the lane hook, because we're trying to get the balls through the front of the lane. So when you follow five two-handers, you probably don't want to be using that depending on the style of bowler you have, you might not want to use that virtual gravity, the gravity evolve. You probably want to maybe go, might be later in the block, maybe 2 or 3 games, and then you need to go to that pearl ball. Well, it's also the most angular down lane because it loses speed further down the lane, okay? So it's longer, and then it makes its transition, okay? We fly away, and then there's the best of both worlds. The incredible phase 3, great mid lane, great length. It gives you the best of both worlds. We call this the hybrid cover, so it's got pearl and solid in the cover. It's versatile, best both of solid and pearl. Some balls we make hybrids, they're 2 parts pearl, 1 part solid. Some are 2 parts solid, 1 part pearl. We mix and match it, again, to try to find the best desired reaction for your kids and for all styles of bowling out there. And here's a great lane graph for you, okay? As you can see, the solid wants to pick, in this regard, if you're playing the same parlay, it wants to pick up stronger. Just trying to understand when to use the balls when to use the balls at what times. Just a graph that shows you for the solids, hybrids, and pearls. I don't want to go into that too much because something coming up. This is very important. This is another video, all right? You're going to watch the difference between the Throwbot and the difference of surface preparation right here. Okay? Here's a surface test, okay? Same RPMs, miles per hour, everything's the same. 4,000 pad, same ball. This is the same ball being used on the video. Okay, 4,000 pad, nice and smooth, nice desired reaction. Now, you as a coach and as a player, here's a 2,000 Aberlon pad. Here's your 2,000 pad. Same ball, same spot. Wants to go a little harder. Okay, sees the lane a little sooner. Now we use a 1,000 pad. Now this ball playing the same part of the lane. Look what the ball does. All right, now you can see the grit on the ball. Wants to grab early and go. This is why surface preparation. Now the 500 pad, same spot in the lane. Fresh lane. Look what the 500 pad does. This is the same ball. Okay? Now the 360 pad. Almost goes in the left gutter. Watch how quick it grabs the lane. See how it won't even get to them. That's the same bowling ball drilled the exact same way. Watch 180. Watch how quick this goes in the gutter. It doesn't allow it to get, boom. That's the same bowling ball, same speed, same launch angle as the throw bot. All the same angles, okay? All changes, all ball surface. Most important thing, understanding your ball surface for your students. You have to have the right ball surface for the right environment. Here's a perfect example of it again. I'll show it again just so you guys can watch it again. All right? Everything is the exact same. Tilt, rotation, miles per hour, RPMs. Everything's the same. This is all adjusting the surface of your bowling ball. 4,000, nice and smooth. Ball gets longer down the lane. And as the grits of the Aberlons come down, the ball will start to see the lane sooner. Sees it a little sooner, a little stronger. You go to 1,000 again. All of a sudden 1,000 is going to go high, but it's still the same lay down spot, same rev rate, same RPMs. And there goes the ball right through the face. And then as you drop down in grits, you're going to see the ball hook earlier and earlier and earlier. Does everybody understand why surface preparation is so important to understanding your bowler? This is vitally important. It's not about, the drillings help too, but if your surface is wrong, this is what's going to happen to your bowling ball. It's huge. Go ahead, Steve.
And again, your surface more important than the drilling, than the insides of the ball, the weight loss?
Well, I would say they're important, but for me, it's Steve's question, guys, everybody out there, is the surface more important than the ball drilling? I think I can manipulate the bowling ball motion more with surface than I can with the drillings, because I can take the same ball with 180 surface and drill it the same way and make it react drastically different. However, the drillings are also very important as well. I would get with our local pro shop, or you can get on our Storm webpage and check out the technical director with Chad McLean. They can help you navigate your way through that with the drillings. But they're both important. Drilling the ball is important, but surface preparation is vital to what you need going forward. Because as you can see, the same ball, that's a lot of different reactions with the same ball. Okay. Now, knowing your role, okay? This is important for coaches. You have to know the ball. You have to know your player, okay? Do you know your player? A ball speed can decelerate 3 to 5 miles an hour before it hits the pins. So it slows down before it hits the pins, right? So as it slows down, what do? Now we got to match up. Does our player throw it hard? Does our player throw it slow? Does he feel comfortable going left? Does he feel comfortable going right? What's his ball arsenal? All these things go into putting it together, okay? Is our player speed dominant? Okay? Speed dominant. Speed dominant players typically favor more aggressive surfaces and layouts to help their ball pick up sooner to the lane. Now, does that make sense to you guys out there? All of your students and high school students that throw it really hard, you want to get them into that solid ball probably, that solid, stronger ball, because remember, a ball has to slow down to hook. So the people that throw it really hard and really fast, the stronger ball will slow down sooner and pick up more. Hopefully that makes sense to you, okay? On the opposite, speed test. Here's your 19 miles an hour. Okay? Same ball's in the same spot in the front of the lane. 19 miles an hour goes in the gutter. 16 miles an hour. Seems to be pretty good speed there. Okay? Same ball, same layout, same surface. 13. Same layout in the front. It hits the same spot in the front. Look what happens when it's 13 miles an hour. Okay? That's why you have to understand your bowler's speed as well. This is what happens when it's 10 miles an hour. Still hits, can't even get to the spot. That's why it's vitally important understanding your player's speed and motion on the ball. Okay, rev rate. The amount of revolutions a bowler puts on a ball. Some people have really high rev rate. A lot of the two-handers create a lot of high rev rate, okay? Common units, they talk about RPMs. Like, you know, you could be, you know, there's categories, you know, from the old days. There's the stroker, there's the tweener, there's the cranker, there's all kinds of ways to decipher what your player is. However, here, you know, rev dominant players with slower speeds typically like aggressive layouts, okay? Aggressive balls and aggressive layouts. So, and you know, you can manipulate the surface to help prevent the ball from overreacting, okay? So a rev dominant player with slower ball speed, you know, doesn't want the really aggressive bowling ball because he's got a high rev rate, but the aggressive ball is going to start up soon, but he doesn't have the ball, he or she doesn't have the ball speed to get the ball down the lane. So what do? Now we got to match the balls to that player, okay? And manipulate the surface. So as we go over here, RPM test, miles per hour. (200 RPMs), low rev rate, low rev rate. Okay, this is low rev rate. Now the ball is going to go in the same spot, same place on the lane with a higher rev rate. 325. Now you'll see the ball spin harder. Okay? Now when the rev rate increases, watch what happens when the rev rate increases. Now 450. You can see the ball spinning, how hard it's spinning. See how hard? And that's what happens. I don't know if we got one more. And now this is your two-handers. This is what happens when your two-handers do the same thing, same ball speed. Okay? So you have to match as a coach. Understand that each player, each bowling DNA is different. All right? Match the balls and the speeds and everything together. All right? All right, knowing your role. Now, do your players have a high roll or a low roll, we like to call it? Vertical, I mean, these are some pretty in-depth terms as far as, you know, what we're talking about. But, you know, axis tilt, the vertical angle which your ball rotates, commonly known as spin, determine the position of the thumb at the release point, okay? As you can see here, high tilt, the result of a ball with a higher degree of axis tilt is extended and the amount of back end potentially is reduced, okay? Oily lanes become difficult when the core is rotating in a vertical fashion, but is favored on gyre lanes because the ball is going this way, it's not reading the lane, okay? If the hand turns too early, the thumb exits on the top and it creates a higher degree of tilt, okay? The opposite applies, the lower axis tilts, the sooner the ball will enter its roll phase, but before making the impact on the pins, that means it's a higher, rolls heavier, you know, and we'll take a look at the video and you'll see the difference there. Okay? Now we're going to talk about how does your player, how do they roll it? Okay? How is their release? 16 degrees there. All right? It's pretty good tilt. It's hard to see that. All right, but that's more end over end. Okay, and now you'll see it even more end over end. And that's why the ball wants to see it even sooner. More end over end, the ball tumbles forward. Okay? Any questions, guys? Anybody have any questions about that? You have to understand your player's ball roll so that you can match up and you can coach them properly so they can read the lane properly. All right, rotation, again, commonly known as side roll, where the fingers at the point of release. Where are your players' fingers at the point of release? Okay? Players with high amounts of axis rotation favor drier lanes, which causes the ball to skid further. That's your Pete Weber. But unlike axis tilt, will cause an intense hook angle at the break point. Your Pete Weber that really gets around the ball. Lower amounts of axis tilt rotation usually favor more oil. That's the people that tumble it end over end. They like the ball to get into a roll early. Okay? Removes all hook potential from the ball regardless of the amount of revolutions. If you get it tumbling this way, it's not going to hook. Okay? Let's take a look at the video. Just real quick so you guys can get a visual of it. And 0 degrees of axis rotation. You can see end over end. The balls are going at the same spot in the front of the lane. Here's 30 degrees, a little bit more. It's not enough still. That means that they're still up the back of it a little bit more. They got to get their hand around it. 60 is usually a really good number. And as you can see it roll, and then it makes its motion down lane. You've got to determine your player, how they throw it. And then this is Pete Weber. He can get it to 70, 75, 80. Sometimes he gets it, as you can see, super around it, staring back at you, okay? So that's just your axis rotation. I think we just saw this video. This is one we just saw. Yes, one we just saw, sorry. Let's go to the next one. Now you get to where you really can help your players, coaches. This is where you can really help your players, okay? Building the arsenal for your tournaments and your league matches and your school matches, and even as coaches, when you're bowling. This holds true for everybody, okay? What's the best way to build an arsenal? Well, there's a lot of ways you can go around it, but I can tell you the number one ball in my bag, and everybody's bag, should be your spare ball. Hands down. Nobody will throw more strikes than they will spares throughout the whole tournament. Well, some people in today's game they do, but they didn't used to. So begin with a benchmark ball that gives you a predictable reaction and build around it. So you take your students' favorite bowling ball that they like to use all the time, okay? Take their favorite ball that they like to use. It's their comfort zone. Whatever they like to, however they like to attack the lane. This is the ball. This is their first ball out of their bag. They use that ball. That's the ball you want to use. Okay. Use that ball, and then you build around that bowling ball. Okay. Like we talked about. All right. Let's say it's your Axiom is your benchmark ball. Then now you got to go strongest to weakest. Now we talked about that earlier. Those big, strong, asymmetrical balls on the inside, and the big cover stocks. You want to get those balls, into your hand, and then also you want to get those. I'll just put them all up right now. So there's basically building arsenal. You want to fill the gaps based on your tendencies. So based on the player that you're coaching, where are their gaps? Do they struggle when there's heavy oil? Do they struggle when the lane is dry? Do they struggle when there's transition? Do they struggle when they have to move inside? Do they struggle when they stay outside? You've got to fill the gaps for that player. So as you can see, we've got a hybrid in there. We've got an asymmetrical in there. We've got a solid symmetrical, and we've got a urethane ball. So we've covered basically all of the desired motions. Now, you get with your pro shop operator and you have him lay out the balls to the desired motion. That's for the higher step. But right now what you want to do is you want to build an arsenal that fits. You don't want to have all the balls on top of one another. You don't want to have balls that do the exact same thing. You want to have balls that, I can bowl the first game in the team event. Okay? I can bowl the second game of the team event. I can bowl the third game of the team event. Or sometimes you'll be able to bowl the tournament, some of those patterns they hold up, you can use the same ball throughout the whole team. But most of the time, your players are going to see transition on the lanes, and you're going to have to attack the lanes with different balls. You're going to have to attack them differently. It's your job as coaches to get more educated. Okay? Remember, no more flip phones. We need smartphones. Okay? You have to understand how to build that arsenal, okay? Match the layups to the design of the intent of that ball, okay? Change the surface. Remember, we showed earlier on the videos, you can change the surface of your bowling balls for as a coach. Is their balls going too far down the lane? Are they not going far enough down the lane? You could put some polish on them. You could take them to 4,000. Every coach out there and every player should have 4,000, 2,000, 3,000, 1,000, 500, 360. All those Aberlon pads in their little their little satchel or their backpack or whatever they're coaching. All should be at the disposal of your coach for your players to change the reaction of the bowling balls. Everyone should have one. Everyone. Okay? If you have those, you're able to better service your players moving forward. Anybody got any questions about that?
What about bowlers who just use house balls, not a true bowler? Should you teach the straight ball?
Listen, it depends on what their goals are. What are their goals? Are they part of the team? And some people, maybe that's their comfort zone and that's what they want to do. But if you want to get to the next level and you want to be competitive, there's very few people in the world of bowling that can throw it straight and be competitive. So I would encourage that bowler to take some lessons and try to get better and try to understand the dynamics and the characteristics of bowling. So that would be my intention. Steve.
Again, just touch on the fact that while they're warming up, this is when the coach has got to see and make his moves. Once they start, that's what they do.
That's right. What Steve said, while the players are warming up, the coaches, this is where you have to do your homework, and we'll come up with about, I think it's in 2 slides, about lane play. This is where you have to do your homework. You've got to know ahead of time that what the lane pattern is, what the length of the pattern is, how we're going to attack the pattern. You got to do your homework. So most of the tournaments and most of the centers and places that you go, I would assume, would understand they would know what pattern they're bowling on, or there'd be a website, maybe, Steve, that they could.
Tournament, probably not local competition.
That's where it comes with experience. You got to understand where the balls are hooking, and you've got to make an educated guess as a coach. What's that ball doing? Listen, once a ball goes down the lane on a pattern, the pattern's different. The pattern changes every time a ball goes down the lane. It's transition. Temperature changes. The lanes play. When you move lane to lane, some lanes have install characteristics where they're different. There's a lot of different variables that go into why you have to stay on top of knowing what the patterns are and what the changes are. There's so many variables that go into it. So that's where the coach, if you do some homework and you hear anything I'm saying in this presentation about understanding, the 3 Ps, again, patience, have the patience to take the time to understand some of the balls and understand some of the dynamics and help your student get better. You'll be much better for it. I promise you that. Okay? Variety is the key. Variety. Can't have the same ball. You can't use the same ball in every lane condition in the world. You're going to see different lane conditions. You're going to see different lane patterns. You're going to see different houses, different surfaces. Some balls are going to be good in some houses. Some balls are not going to be good in some houses. That's why variety is the key. Get six ball arsenal. Usually, I don't know if there's a limit in balls in the rules, but when you get to the USBC and you get to the big time, like the US Open gives you a 10-ball limit, and the Masters is a 10-ball limit, you're only allowed, that's it, 10 balls. So I actually like the ball limit rule. It allows you to, per tournament, to understand your balls. And then after that tournament, hey, where did I go wrong? Where was my gap? I got to add this ball. I got to take this ball out. I got to add this one, take this. It makes you become more educated in what decisions you have to make moving forward as a coach and as a player. Okay, and then we're going to build the arsenal. Okay? Sure, go ahead.
Our format, you're speaking probably on a longer format where they have a chance to change equipment and adjust. Our conference matches are just 2 give them a lot of shots to go through a lot of equipment.
Right. Well, Steve said that obviously the formats are going to determine equipment changes. You take a 12-game Baker match, and I can almost bet that you won't be throwing the same ball at the beginning of that as to the end. In your team game, is it five people? 5 people on a team. Okay. So after 2 frames, you've rolled an entire game on the lane. Okay. So after 2 frames, that's 10 shots. Okay. So usually you see transition throughout, a 5-man team event quite rapidly, depending on who you're following. As I said earlier, transition will happen depending. Are you following 5 two-handers? Are you following 5 one-handers? Are you following 3 lefties on one team and two righties? As a coach, you have to understand the environment, what's going on, and then be prepared that if it's not working, what is the other option? Variety is the key, like we said. What are the other options that you can give your players and help them with should they be struggling with what they're having? And if they're not, then it goes back to the 3 Ps: patience, perseverance. Are they practiced? Are they ready? Are they mentally able to handle the environment? So there's a lot of things that go into it. But I can tell you the environment is always changing, and the people that stay on top of those changes and the coaches that stay on top of those changes are the ones that are going to have that one leg up on the competition. So that's a great point. Each tournament is a different format, so what's going to happen is, or each event actually, like you said, singles, 5-man team, and what was the other? The Bakers. So those environments are going to be changing. As a coach, I would anticipate that they've seen some of those changes already. Now maybe after this they'll be better equipped for their players moving forward to make those changes. So now you have a rev dominant versus speed dominant. Are your players rev? Are they medium or they like meatier or weaker equipment? They like long pin to paps. That's getting into the really dynamics of layouts and balls. Speed dominant players, they like those strong balls, like I said earlier, where the shorter pin to pap, shorter pin buffers, with that quick reaction, because they throw it hard, so you want the ball to get into a roll quicker. Your rev dominant players usually like the balls that get through the front of the lane a little bit better. That's your pearl balls and your hybrid balls. So without going into much more of that. You build in your arsenal, you start bringing the balls into play. Stronger pins, weaker pins, what have you. The smoother surface because of the rev dominance. The rougher surface for the speed dominance. So if your player throws it harder, you want to go with that lower grit Aberlon. You want to change that Aberlon because that's going to get the ball to pick up for that player. And the opposite, if the player isn't speed dominant and throws it slow, you want to put that polish, or you want to put that higher grade Aberlon, that 4,000 pad, because it makes the surface smoother and makes it longer to go down the lane. Okay? Any questions? Hope that's okay. Again, variety is the key, right? Variety is the key. You don't want to have balls on top of one another. You want to be able to make decisions. Just like we do at Storm, as I said this earlier, we build balls for every style of bowling. And that's what all the companies are doing. We're all trying to do that. So variety is the key. Make sure you put the right pieces in your players' hands. Create the checklist for your. This is what you want to do. Okay. I'll put them up here real quick because there you go. Okay. Build your arsenal. There's your checklist right here. Okay. You got your IQ Tour, symmetrical, same internal components. It's lower RG. It's you could see the numbers and all the things that are incorporated. Okay, all the things that are incorporated. Your pitch purples, your urethane ball, solid. It's not a lot. It's where a lot of the high rev rate bowlers have success because it doesn't change direction a lot down lane. Your urethane's usually used on those shorter patterns. Or their lower volume patterns, where lower and shorter volume patterns, or even the higher, shorter length patterns. Okay, your IQ Tours, you like your benchmark ball. That's your ball that you could use on a lot of different lane conditions. Okay, symmetrical, it's solid, it's 4,000 grit. So you could put 1,000 on that ball like we showed you in the video, and the ball will hook a lot sooner. Okay, it'll change direction a lot different for your players. Okay, then you go into the middle of that, your phase 3, symmetrical again. It's got the best of both worlds. That's where it fits in your, maybe that fits in the team event in the end of game 1. Okay, maybe you start off with your crux prime. Okay, where it's that big, stronger asymmetrical, where the oil's really heavy and fresh, and then you switch to, by the end of the game, that game 1, you're into your phase 2, and then a lot of people are using surface on the lane, or they're all playing the same part of the lane and it gets cliffed. Now you move a little left, and maybe you go with your astrophysics, your asymmetrical that's pearl, that you can change the surface on it as well. So there's building your arsenal, create your checklist. Okay. As a coach and as a player, create your checklist. Okay, lane play. All right, here's some things that we're going to discuss about lane play real quick. Matching your arsenal to the desired lane patterns. We just talked about that. Make sure you get the right balls for the right lane patterns. For example, you have a 32-foot short pattern. Probably going to start out with your urethane ball. You're probably going to stay further to the right. Number 2, very important, okay? Understand the volumes of oil and the length of the patterns. You have to know, when you can understand, even if it's not posted, you have to understand, where's my ball hooking, okay? Where's my ball hooking? Where are my students' balls hooking? Are they going too long? Do I need to get a ball that's sooner? Do I need them to have more surface on it? Do I need to put more polish on it? You have to understand those dynamics for your players. You have to understand it. It's very important, okay? And if you do find the pattern length, I want all the coaches and players out there, Kegel came up with this great rule, the rule of 31. I'm sure you've heard it before, but if you haven't, what you do is you take the pattern length. This is a ballpark figure, and you subtract 31 from the pattern length. So for example, if the pattern is 40 feet, and you subtract 31 from that, that gets you 9. Usually 9 is your break point where you want to be. You want to use that as a barometer, if you go to, let's say we go to 44 feet, and then you use the rule 31. Now your break point's 13. You use that as a generalization. Obviously, the shorter the pattern, you go to 35. You use the rule 31. Now all of a sudden your break point's 4. The shorter the pattern, the further right you need to be on the fresh. The longer the pattern, the closer to the pocket you need to be. You have to play smart as a coach and also as a player, to understanding if my ball's hooking a lot, the big misnomer that I see coaches make out there, this is the biggest mistake they make, is they get a shorter pattern, they get a real shiny ball to use it because they think they're going to go long and it's going to change direction. Well, it's going to amplify the dry even more. If you take a ball that skids really long through the pattern, and it's going to come off the dry, it's going to go sideways, it's going to be impossible to control. So what you need to do is, you want the ball really into its roll phase after it's exited the pattern. So understand the rule of 31, okay? And then, like we said earlier, adjust those surfaces for that desired ball motion. We showed you the dynamics of, if you throw it the same way, same speed, same rev rate, same everything, the ball changes. That's vitally important. Ball surface and ball speed control. For me, 2 of the most important things in bowling. Do you got the right ball surface on your ball? Can you control your ball speed? Not one shot, throw it 19 miles an hour, the next shot, throw it 16, the next shot, throw it 17, the next shot, throw it 15. Can you throw it the same way? Shot repeatability, time and time again. It's not easy to do. Can you do it? We good? Okay. Understanding angles of attack. Like I said earlier, how are we going to attack the pattern? If it's a longer pattern, are we going to attack it playing 1, 2, 3, boards 1, 2, 3, or are we going to try to bring our break point closer to the pocket? Are we going to, on short patterns, 35 feet, are we going to play 20, try to play the middle of the lane? With 25 feet of back end, it's going to be very difficult. Understand how to attack the pattern. Understanding your angles. When the lane breaks down, where are your moves? Do you move left? Do you move right? Change surface, change ball. And that's the key as a coach. It's one of the things that we have to work on as our tour team. We're trying to stay ahead of the moves because we're trying to anticipate how the lane is going to change, how it's going to transition. For example, we bowl the PBA World Championship in March this year, and once they get to the cashers round, they bowl in the same pattern the rest of the way. Well, that pattern is the same, but it changes throughout each day because the players attack it sometimes differently. So we've got to stay ahead of the moves for our players, making sure that they have the right balls and attacking the lane the right way and seeing the ball motion that they want to see. As again, I said earlier, bowling DNA. Each player has their own bowling DNA. How do you attack it with that bowler and their DNA? It's very important. Okay? How many times have we seen our big, heavy, two-handed bowler uncomfortable when you tell me, hey, you got to play right, you got to move right, you got to play up 5. Get your bowler, get comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. You have to get your bowlers out of their comfort zone and let them have success. When they get out of their comfort zone and they have success, their window will open, their confidence will grow, and the next time they get in that situation, they'll be better off moving forward from it. I can tell you that. So, and the last thing, as a coach and as a bowler, keeping your eyes open. Watching who's bowling in front of you. Okay, watching what they're doing. If you're struggling or if you're doing something good and you're playing a part of the lane that you're going to, the next pair that you're going to go to, you got to stay ahead of that. You got to stay on top of those moves. You got to know what the person in front of you is doing as opposed to what the person that's doing with you on the lanes. Are you crossing with, as I said earlier, are you following 2 two-handers? Are you following 5 left-handers? Are you following low rev rate? All these components go into making sure that you can read a lane and understanding lane transition. We got any questions? Anybody have any questions? We good so far? All right, we're almost wrapping up here. A couple more slides. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm trying. Okay. There's a bunch of slides up there for you guys as it spins through, okay? As you can see, technical, know-how, and why. You want all the technical information you want, it's right there about news@stormbowling.com. Go check us out. You could get any information you want. And as I said earlier, the first thing I said before I started my presentation was there's no dumb question. You can ask any question you want. We've got great tech support people in there. Kendall Miles is in there helping out. Call our team out there, and they'll help you with any single question you have, and so will I. I enjoy trying to help people get better. I enjoy trying to help coaches coach better, and the principles that I've talked about today is the modern game of bowling, and if you could adhere to some of these principles, I promise you, you will improve your knowledge of the game, but also you will improve, you probably have a little bit more fun as well, because your team will start doing a little bit better. And if you're a bowler, which most of you that coach probably are, maybe your own game will improve as well. So keep these things in, stormbowling.com. You can get all the information you want. And that's why there's all these things, knowing your role, RGs, asymmetrical versus symmetrical. It's all there, drilling patterns. But I encourage you to check your local pro shop and also do some research. In today's environment, the world is a really small place. I remember when I first started traveling around the world, we didn't have the internet. I couldn't call home, just to have a little Skype call or a video conferencing call like we have now. So the world has changed. Information is at your fingertips. Use it. Utilize it to your advantage, okay? And again, all the information that you need, stormnews.bowling.com. We've got great write-ups and great discussion about our new products coming out. We've got our youth section. We've got a Storm Youth Championship section. We've got a collegiate section, how-to, the tournaments, stories, whatever you need on there, all written by our tech department and also our coaching department. we're here to help you get better as a coach, help you enhance your relationships with your players, help you understand technology, and help you understand what we're trying to deliver to our customers worldwide. Scott, we got any questions? We still doing good? We still got some people on there? Hopefully some people.
Is there any advantage to having your team burn a line on the lane?
Well, yeah. I mean, the question was, is there any advantage to having your team, burn a spot in the lane? Listen, if all the players can do the same thing, on a fresh lane, they've said carve out a part of the pattern, but if you have the skill set to do that and attack a lane the lane a right way, it could make the transition changes easier for your team. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the things that I know has been quote unquote discussed and argued amongst time over coaches and players. But when there's a lot of different ball tracks going down the lane, that transitional move for your coach, for you as a coach, and you as a player, it makes it a lot more difficult. So if you can take out some of the principles that already make the sport hard and navigate that even better, absolutely, by all means. I say, try to do that and improve your experience, with your team, and they can learn from it. So yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
Sure.
Back to practice. Tim mentioned one-step drill. I have a two-hander this year. Is there something I can do with him?
Yes, two-handed bowling. You could still do the one-step approach in two-handed bowling. You do the, where he's in his last pivot step, his power step, and then he slides into his shot if he's having problems at the bottom. With the two-handers, it's very important that cradle. If you watch the cradle, you don't want to get too steep in the cradle. You don't want to bring the cradle up too high in the cradle. You want to have that cradle nice and long with the two-handers. It's very synonymous with one-handers. You don't want to grab the ball and pull the ball up to the top of your swing with one-handers. So there's some of the same fundamental principles in one-handed and two-handed that adhere the same with, as far as having a nice long fluid cradle. I always try to tell them to keep that elbow long and high. It helps in that regard. If you watch a guy like Jesper Svensson, again, they get to the foul line differently. You watch Jesper Svensson; he's the only guy that has his power step that goes left. His power step goes left. So most of the power steps, are going with the bowlers as they walk. So you watch Jason Belmonte, and then you watch Anthony Simonson and Kyle Troop. They're all two-handers, but they all get there different ways. Kyle's way far on the back of the approach, using his legs to get, and really good low leg drive. Anthony Simonson, sometimes you'll see him up in front of the foul line just taking 2 steps to slow himself down. And then sometimes he'll be way in the back of the approach when he wants to throw it harder. Okay? I would equate this to two-handers and one-handers, two-handers. When they want to throw it harder, they usually move back on the approach just like one-handers. And when they want to throw it slower, as bowlers, you want to move up and shorten that approach up so you have less time to create the momentum. If you have more momentum, creates more speed. Less space creates less momentum. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. But two-handed bowling, I would be cognizant of the cradle and always try to work the inside out of the bowling ball with your hand at the bottom of the swing. It's very important. All right? Anything else? Is that okay? Good? There you go. And there's the man himself. Chad's on here because he's our technical director and he's been very instrumental in this entire process. There's all of his contact information. Stormbowling.com. Chad.mclean@stormbowling.com. He's a wealth of information. He's a great guy. And he'll take any information you have as far as on the technical side. And that happens to be me. Yours truly right here. Same thing, call Storm anytime you want. I'd give you my cell phone number, but I'm tired of people calling me. My wife and daughter say turn my phone off. So if you can email me, I will get back to you as soon as I can and get you any information you can. And if there's something we can do in the future, work together in the future, by all means, it would be my pleasure to do so. And then, yeah, I want to show you a little bit about, that's our team at Storm, okay? That's just home office. All those people go into making one bowling ball. All of them. Everybody in that picture, and some that aren't in that picture, have a hand in making every bowling ball we make, okay? And have a hand in developing coaches, have a hand in Storm University, have a hand in SYC, Storm Youth Championships. Everybody in that photo, okay? So it takes an army, okay? I've always said it's strength in numbers, and we have the best numbers in the world, in my opinion. Storm's been very near and dear to my heart. Barb and Bill Crispin are here to build bowling and make it better. And I know that if you guys as coaches are out there, you're trying to educate your students and educate maybe yourselves, knowledge is key. Knowledge is key. I just need a little sip of water here. So if anybody's got any questions, we're open to have some questions here a little bit, and fire away.
Any questions for Tim?
No question is a dumb question, guys. So if you want to ask some questions, or if you have any situations that you're faced with as a coach that you don't know how to handle, and if you don't feel comfortable voicing them now, by all means, you can email me, and I'll get with Steve and or Scott and Chad or anybody else who's helped put this presentation together, and we'll get you that information or try to get you an answer for your question. It's sometimes I know it's a lot of information to take on all at the same time. When you get this amount of information, and you get the amount of listen, there's some coaches in the chat right now that are a lot more experienced and a lot higher skilled than others, but all of you are in the chat because you're passionate about bowling and thankful. So I'm thankful you're. So looks like we got a question. What do we got, Scott?
If you're leaving too many corner pins, what is the best typical change to get carry? Line, speed, or ball change?
Could be a number of those things. How are you leaving the corner pins? Are you leaving ring 10s? Are you leaving flat 10s? Are you leaving messenger 10s? There's a number of different ways to combat that. You can move, you can stay in the same ball, move right and throw it harder. You can stay in the same ball, cheat it a little left, throw it slower. You can move your target up and back. You have to understand what your player is capable of doing. What is their limitations and what is their window? What are they able to perform? And you can change balls. You can use loft. You can loft it out on the lane. It could be a ball that has a little more surface, so it sees the lane a little sooner, so it enters the pocket a little differently. You can change your roll on your hand. You can get it to roll, like we said, axis tilt or tilt and rotation. You can change that. There's a number of different ways. For me, for example, if I'm leaving the messenger 10 pin where it's coming in front of the 10, that means my ball's breaking too late. That means I need to probably get it to see the lane a little sooner. So I'll sometimes move one right and try to get the ball a little bit more end over end so it sees the lane sooner. That doesn't work. Sometimes I'll switch balls. But I've got to leave 8 or 9 10 pins, or 8 or 9, 9 counts in a long stretch for me to change something like that. Or you may be faced with a higher scoring environment where you have to strike, so then you've got to be a little bit more aggressive in your changes. So it's all contingent on the environment and the player and what they're capable of doing. But that's a great question because everybody wants to strike, right? Everybody wants to strike. But I will say this: if you carry 70% of the time, you win every. Statistically, you're in the final of every tournament. 70% carry percentage. So that means 7 out of 10, you're winning. So if you're striking 66 out of 10, you're usually in the finals or close to the top 5, 65%. So think about that. So the problem is so many people today are used to striking so much that they forget these numbers out there, and they get a little bit convoluted because the scoring pace has changed so much. But there's a number of different factors you can do to carry, for sure. Anybody else got anything? Nobody else? So with that in mind, I would just like to, as Steve comes on camera, I would like to thank Steve personally, from me to him, and also to Scott and Chad and Savage Bowling and everybody here at Mike Aulby's Arrowhead Lanes for giving me the opportunity to come out here and speak to you guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope next time, if there is a next time for me, if I'm lucky enough to get the opportunity, that I could speak in front of you guys and have a chance to do this in a full room of people. I know we've got another speaker coming on, I don't know what, but he's coming right next after me. So I just know that I'm very passionate about the sport of bowling. I'm very passionate about my company, Storm, and I'm very passionate about people that want to make bowling better and coaches that want to make it better. And I'm extremely grateful for everybody that's involved in high school bowling and trying to help kids out there today. I wish you guys all the best moving forward, and for everybody that made this possible, from my heart to your heart, a debt of gratitude from me. So thank you very much, and stay strong and stay healthy, and bowling will survive. So keep it up.